We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 111b. In our Mishnah on the previous summit, the Mishnah made a distinction by Ger Toshav that some of the psukim of withholding wages apply, but others do not apply. Whereas where it comes to Behema and Kalim, let's say hiring animals, hiring vessels, so over there all the psukim seem to apply. But the Gemara says that doesn't seem to go like any of the Tanoim in the following Brisa. The Brisa says that the pasuk says Me'achecha from your brothers. This is a pasuk in Sefer Devarim. It says Lo Sashok Sachir Ani Ve'evion Me'achecha O Migercha Asher Bi'artzecha B'Sharecha. So we understand Me'achecha from your brothers Pratli Acherim. That comes to exclude others, means to say it comes to exclude non-Jews. In Gercha it says the word Gercha Zer Ger Tzedek, that refers to a convert. B'Sharecha it says in your gates Zer Ochel Nevelos, that refers to one who eats Nevelos. That's essentially what we call a Ger Toshav. Ein Lielo Sachar Adam. Now I only know it's true if you hire a person. Minay L'Rabos Behema V'Kalim. How do we know also to include if you're hiring an animal or vessels? Talmud Lomar Bi'artzecha, the pasuk says Ba'artzecha Kol Shabi'artzecha, anything in your land. V'kulan Ovrim B'chol Hashemos Halalu. In all of these cases, you're going to violate all of the various prohibitions, all of the various violations that are related to withholding wages. Mikan Omru, from here they say Echot Sachar Adam V'Echot Sachar Behema V'Echot Sachar Kalim, whether you hire a person or an animal or vessel. Yesh Bo Mishum Biyomo Titein Sacharo, there is the violation of Biyomo Titein Sacharo. Biyomo Titein Sacharo also is in Sefer Devarim, it's the next pasuk. It says Biyomo Titein Sacharo V'lo Savo Alav Hashemesh Ki Anihu Ve'elav Hu Noses Nafsho, etc. So you're over that. V'yesh Bohen Mishum Baltalin Pula Sachar, and also there's a violation of Baltalin. Baltalin, that pasuk is in Sefer Vayikra. It says Lo Sashok Esreyacha V'lo Sigzol Lo Solin Pula Sachar Itzchad Boker. You can't withhold the wages until morning, meaning to say, according to this Tanakam of the Brisa, the violations apply, all of the violations apply, whether it comes to a Ger Toshav, it applies by animals, by vessels, the violations apply across the board. That's what the Tanakama says. That's why the Tanakama does not seem to be consistent with our Mishnah, which says by Ger Toshav, some apply and some don't. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer, now Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, Ger Toshav Yeshbo Mishum Biyomo Titein Sacharo. When it comes to Ger Toshav, there is the violation of Biyomo Titein Sacharo. That's the pasuk in Sefer Devarim. V'yein bo mishum lo solin, but there is no violation of lo solin, which is the pasuk in Sefer Vayikra. So according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, we do make that distinction that our Mishnah makes by Ger Toshav. And behema v'kelim, when it comes to animals and vessels, ein bohen ela mishum bal tashok bilvad. The only violation is bal tashok. That again is from Sefer Devarim. And so this also does not seem to be like our Mishnah, because by behema and kelim, Rabbi Yossi is saying only some psukim apply. And so that's what the Gemara says. Mani, who's the author of our Mishnah? Itanakama d'me'achecha, if it's the Tanakama of this Brisa above, kasha Ger Toshav. We have a problem by Ger Toshav because the Tanakama fully includes Ger Toshav. I Rabbi Yossi, and if it's Rabbi Yossi, kasha behema v'kelim, we have difficulty from behema and kelim, because again, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda does not fully include behema and kelim, but our Mishnah does. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Hi Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah is Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, it's the Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel. The Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, because it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, Echot Sachar Adam, V'echot Sachar Behema, V'echot Sachar Kelim, Yeshba Mishum Biyomo Titein Sacharo, or Mishum Lo Talin. When it comes, whether it's person, animal, or hiring vessels, you have all of the psukim. Ger Toshav, when it comes to a Ger Toshav, we make a distinction. Yeshba Mishum Biyomo Titein Sacharo, you do have Biyomo Titein Sacharo, V'ein Bo Mishum Bal Talin, but you don't have Bal Talin. And Rashi explains, and this is by the Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, Ger Toshav Yeshbo Mishum Biyomo Titein Sacharo. Ger Toshav is included in Biyomo Titein Sacharo, that you have to pay him on that day. V'chol shekein Mishum Lo Sashok Sachar Devegavei Ksiv Bisharecha, and certainly also included in Lo Sashok, which is written over there Bisharecha. Bisharecha is where we learn out Ger Toshav. The point is, these are all the psukim in Sefer Devarim, and again, those psukim in Sefer Devarim have to do with paying the worker during the day. V'yein bo Mishum Lo Solin. However, when it comes to Ger Toshav, Lo Solin, which means don't wait until the morning. That talks about when you're paying at night. That does not apply to the Ger Toshav. The Torah's Kohanim, that again is in Torah's Kohanim and Sefer Vayikra. V'chein mishum lo sashok v'lo sigzol, the Torah's Kohanim. Same thing with everything written in Torah's Kohanim, lo sashok, lo sigzol. That again will not apply by Ger Toshav. And Rashi just notes, v'hai denokat hani, the reason why we specifically pick on the phrase biyomo titein sacharo and the phrase lo solin, mishum de mefarshi behu sachar yom v'sachar laila, because those psukim make it clear that we're saying sachar Sacher Yom, or we're talking about Sacher Laila. V'hachi Kamar, what it basically is saying is as follows, says Rashi, Yesh bo mishum biyomo titein secharo d'mishtoi gabe schir Laila. When it comes to a ger toshav, you have biyomo titein secharo, pay him during the day. That's talking about someone hired at night. So by the ger toshav that's hired at night, the psukim apply. V'yein bo mishum schir yom, however, the psukim that are talking about someone hired during the day, that does not apply to a ger toshav. That's essentially the distinction that we are making between the psukim in Sefer Devarim and the psukim in Sefer Vayikra. And the Gemara continues, my time of the Tanakama de Meachecha. What's the reason of the Tanakama, of the Brais of Meachecha, that the Tanakama essentially learns that all of the psukim apply by ger toshav and they apply by animals and vessels. Essentially, they all apply by everything. The reason is Gomer Sacher Sacher, mix Gzer Shavev Sacher Sacher. Rashi explains Gomer Sacher Sacher Ksiv Hacha Lo Sashok Sacher. It says over here Lo Sashok Sacher. Uchsiv B'Schir Yom Lo Solin Pu'ulas Sacher. It says by Schir Yom Lo Solin Pu'ulas Sacher. Makan ger toshav behema v'kelim is Rabbi. Just like over here, we're including everything, ger toshav, behema, and kelim. Af b'toras kohanim nami, so too in the Sefer Vayikra, ger toshav, behema, v'kelim, everything is included. Essentially, the Tanakam is including everything through this gezerah shaveh. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, he holds lo gamar, sacher, sacher. He doesn't make this gezerah shaveh of sacher, sacher, and Rashi explains lo gamar, hilkach the Toras kohanim, therefore the psukim by Toras kohanim, lesnu lo behema, v'kelim, v'lo ger toshav. They don't apply by behema, kelim, and ger toshav. But the Gemara continues, Nihidalo Gamar Sacher Sacher. Now granted that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda doesn't have the Gzer Shav of Sacher Sacher, but Behema v'Kelim Mishum Biyomo Titein Secharo, but Behema and Kelim, in terms of the pasuk of Biyomo Titein Secharo, which is in Sefer Devarim, Nami Nechayev, at least that should be Chayev. Rashi says, Mishum Deviyomo Titein Secharo, L'Chayev should be Chayev, Ta Samech Le, because it's nearby, Devekra Deleil K'se Me'artzecha. It says in that pasuk earlier, Me'artzecha, and so therefore by Behema and Kelim, at least that part of the pasuk in Sefer Devarim should apply. But again, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda only applied Bal Tashok to Behema v'Kelim, and the Gemara says to that, Tani Rabbi Chananya taught Amar Krutz, because the pasuk says, V'lo savo olav Hashemesh ki anihu. It says that the sun should not set because he is poor. Mishein boin lidei anius v'ashiras. We're only talking about those who can come to poverty or wealth. Yatsu Behema v'Kelim, we exclude Behema and Kelim. She'enon boin lidei anius v'ashiras. There's no concept of becoming poor or wealthy when it comes to animals and vessels. And the Gemara continues with Tanakama. So according to the Tanakama, hi ki anihu my avidle. What does he do with ki anihu? Because again, essentially what Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda is saying is that ki anihu excludes the animals and kelim from some parts of these psukim in Sefer Devarim, but the Tanakama does not exclude them. So what does he do with ki anihu? And the Gemara says to that, ahumi boy lahakdim ani lasher. That's to say that the ani takes precedence over the oshir. Rashi says lahakdim ani lioshir niskru shnei parlin. Let's say a person hires two workers. Echad ani v'echad asher. One is poor, one is wealthy. Vein biyad litin el echad, and he can only give one of them. Ha'ani kodim. So then the ani is the one that comes first. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know to learn out lahakdim ani la'asher? Hahumi lo sashok sacher ani ve'avyon nafka. That's learned out from the pasuk. The pasuk says in Sefer Devarim, lo sashok sacher ani ve'avyon. It specifically talks about the poor. We see that the poor come first. The Tanakama. Now the Tanakama. Why do we need two psukim about the poor? Chad lahakdim ani la'asher. One pasuk is to say the ani comes before the ashir. The chad lahakdim ani li'avyon. The other pasuk is to say that the ani actually comes before the evyon. Rashi explains evyon is mu'una me'ani. An evyon is actually poorer than an ani. V'loshen evyon ha'ov aveinu masig mashenavsho mesav l'chol tov means to say that he doesn't get what his soul desires. Ve'ashmin and kra, and therefore we need two psukim because the other pasuk is teaching the ani kodem li'evyon, that the ani actually comes before the evyon. Mishum the ani kosif lemitve, because the ani is embarrassed to claim it. Afagav the tzarech, even though the ani needs it as well. And the Gemara continues with tzricha, and both psukim are necessary, meaning to teach that the ani comes before the ashir and to teach that the ani comes before the evyon. Diashmin and evyon, because if it only taught us that the ani comes before the evyon, mishum the lokasif lemitve, because the evyon is not embarrassed to ask. Aval ashir, but when it comes to a wealthy person, the kasif lemitve who's embarrassed to ask, so emalo, so then I would say maybe not, maybe the ani doesn't come first. Viashmin and ashir, and if it only taught us that the ani comes before the ashir, mishum the lo tzarech, because the ashir doesn't even need the money. Aval evyon the tzarech, but the evyon who needs the money, emalo, I would say the ani doesn't come before the evyon. So tzricha, that's why both psukim are necessary. And the Gemara continues, V'tana didan now the Tana of our Mishnah Monavshach, so either way you look at it, Iyoliv Sacher Sacher, if the Tana of our Mishnah learns the Gzeira Shav of Sacher Sacher, Afilo Ger Toshav Nami, so then a Ger Toshav also, all the Psukim should apply to Ger Toshav. And Ilo Yoliv Sacher Sacher, if he's not learning the Gzeira Shav of Sacher Sacher, Behema V'Kelim Inali, how do we know that all the Psukim apply to Behema V'Kelim? And the Gemara says, Liolam Lo Yoliv Sacher Sacher, really the Tana of our Mishnah does not have the Gzeira Shav of Sacher Sacher, V'Shani Hasam, but it's different over there, meaning the Psukim in Sefer Vayikra reference Behema and Kalim. How? Because the pasuk says over there in Sefer Vayikra, V'lo solin Pu'ula Sacher Itcha ad Boker. So it talks about Pu'ula Sacher Itcha, Kol Shepu'ulaso Itcha. Anyone who's working with you, that includes Behema and Kalim. Ihachi if so, Afilo Ger Toshav Nami. Well, that should also include a Ger Toshav. The Gemara says no. Amar Kra. The pasuk also says Reyacha means your friend. Reyacha v'lo Ger Toshav, your friend and not the Ger Toshav. The Gemara says Ihachi if so, Afilo Behema v'Kalim Nami. So Behema and Kalim should be excluded because that's not your friend. Haksiv Itcha, no, because the pasuk says Itcha with you, that includes Behema and Kalim. The Gemara says Maru Yisla Rabos Behema v'Kalim Ulahotzi Ger Toshav. How do you know that you should be including the animal and the vessels and excluding Ger Toshav? And the Gemara says Mistavra makes sense. Behema v'Kalim Havalei Larabos. We should include Behema and Kalim. Shekain Yeshnon Bechlal Momon Reacha, because they're included in the money of your friend. But Ger Toshav Eino Bechlal Momon Reacha. But Ger Toshav is not included in the money of your friend. And the Gemara continues V'Tanakama de Me'achecha. Now the Tanakama of the Bryce at the top of the Yomad of Me'achecha. Hi Reacha my Avdile. What does the Tanakama do with Reacha? Because they already have the Gezeira Shava. And the Gemara says Ahumi Boy Le Lechidatanya. They use it for the following Bryce. Reacha v'lo Amaleki means your friend, but not an Amaleki. The Gemara says, what do you mean? Amaleki me'achecha nafka. Amaleki is already excluded because it says your brother. The Gemara says, no, chad lemishra oshko v'chad lemishra gazela. One is to permit oppressing the Amaleki, and the other is to permit stealing from the Amaleki. Rashi says, ashako is schar sacher. If you withhold wages from the Amaleki, and gazela is gazela mamish, to steal from the Amaleki, we're permitting both of those. And the Gemara says, utzrichi, and each one is necessary. The Yashmin and gazela, because if we just said that you can steal from him, misham delo tarach be, because he hasn't worked for that. Avaloshko, but when it comes to withholding wages, the tarach gabe, that he worked for him, malo, I might say you're not allowed to withhold the wages. V'yashmin and oshko, if we only had oshko, misham delo asal liyadi, because that money hasn't yet gotten to the Amaleki. Aval gazela, but to steal from him, the asal liyadi, that's money that he had in his possession. Malo, I would say that's not allowed. So tzricha, that's why it's necessary to teach both. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, hay lo solin pula sacher itcha ad boker my avidle. What does Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda do with itcha? Again, itcha was the pasuk that we said that our Tana uses to include behema v'kelim, even though there's no gezeira shava. So what does Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda do with that pasuk? Mi boy le l'chid Ravasi, he uses it for Ravasi's teaching. The Yom Ravasi, because Ravasi says afilu lo sacher el livser lo eshkol echad shel anavim. Even if he just hired him to harvest one cluster of grapes over mishum baltalin, there still can be a transgression of baltalin, of withholding the wages. And the Gemara continues, V'idach, and the other Tanoim, how did they learn out this idea of one cluster of grapes? They learn it out, mi ve'elav hu noseas nafsho, from the pasuk of ve'elav hu noseas nafsho nafka. That's what they learn it out from. Davar hamoser nafsho olav. Rashi says, me ve'elav hu noseas nafsho kol sheshibed atzmo olav, meaning to say, he's obligated himself in this work, any kind of work that he's obligated himself in, that's going to cause the violation of baltalin. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph.